Let's talk about one of the most common complications that I see in women who are over, let's say 30, 35, and it's their first baby. So I'm thinking specifically about 3 cases I had for this year. One I just attended last week, and it's such a frustrating syndrome that's occurring, which, if I had to sum it up in just a very short description, would be where the baby is getting this forehead a little bit up here on the pubic bone and is not able to come down. It's not a flexed head. So I'll go more into this, but let me describe these cases for you. And one of the most frustrating things about it is that it is healthy women, normal weight, healthy women who tend to exercise in a normal, healthy way. There's kind of this thing with a history of dance because of what we think is causing the turning out of the legs and some tightening in the posterior. And this is patterns that are held in the body. So let's think about the difference between birthing at age 25 and age 35. That's 10 more years that your body has been holding patterns. So whatever your pattern is and whatever causes that pattern, it can be something like repetitive sports or dance. It can be scoliosis causing some alignment or just some trauma. It can be poor posture, constant sitting, not engaging in regular movement and activities. So when we think about what our bodies are like in their 30s to 40s, is they become more tight and these patterns become more repetitive, and you tend to start having these hip issues. You know, certain sides tend to be tight. Even when you go regularly to chiropractic, regularly do exercise. If you're in your mid 30s to 40s, you know what I'm talking about, is that you start to have some aches and tightness and tends to be worse on one side. So we have to give credit to the fact that our bodies are not quite as loosey-goosey as they were in their 20s. And this is going to impact childbirthing, okay? So it's wonderful you waited to have this baby. You are so much more mature and developed and ready to be a fantastic parent. But we need to meet our body where it's at. And this pattern I'm seeing is so ingrained in these bodies that despite being healthy, normal weight, active, and working with pelvic PT and chiropractic, which is what I require of my first-time moms planning home birth, because they don't want to transfer to the hospital and I don't want to transfer them. So we are doing the work. And yet I run into this case over and over. So let's talk about it. Here's our pelvis. Here's the side of the pelvis. We have muscles running down here from psoas all the way down into this pelvic floor. And this determines how our sweet baby gets to sit. Is it going to sit back in the pelvis, or is it going to sit forward in the pelvis? Is it going to be to one side or the other? So in this pattern that I'm seeing for these cases, I'm seeing some sort of tightening in the back, which is pushing baby forward. So baby may even feel like it's in perfect alignment. We love it when the back is to the front, left or right, but the head, instead of maybe being back here in the bowl of the pelvis back, is good. Baby on the front, not good. So baby should be in the back, not on the front. What I feel during their prenatal visits usually is I'll feel a little forehead up on one side. And you might notice this because you feel pubic bone pain, or you've been having to have one ligament adjusted more. And that's because this little forehead is actually putting a lot of pressure on this bone. And the forehead is there because the head cannot get back here in the bowl. So what do we need? We need space back here. We need these muscles to be loosey-goosey and relaxed. We need this tailbone to be coming back on the tailbone, not tucked in, not tight. We do not want to be holding our butt down. We want the butt out, right? Great anatomy. Think of that peacock stance, shoulders back, booty back, belly forward. So first babies, sometimes, we are so tucked in and tight that we are not getting in this optimal position. And I constantly am trying to remind my clients, booty back, belly out, open it up. Be very open and not restrictive. Cut out, do not do these ab exercises. Do not do this pelvic floor tightening step. We need loosey-goosey, big openness, lots of space for baby. And again, it's more than just now. It is the patterns that have been held there the last 10 years. So yes, you need professional help and an investment in doing the work if you are mid-30s or later, or even late 20s and 30s if you know that you hold a lot of tension in your body. So what do these labors look like? Okay, so I said that at their visits, I can usually feel a head a little bit up here on the pubic bone. Head's not super deep back there, but baby's back might be towards the front like I like. What does labor look like? So labor starts with an irregular pattern. So when this head is not hitting that, imagine that little start button, which is your cervix here, okay? This is your cervix, and it's gonna fire little labor firing when the head is putting pressure on it. So if the head is not putting pressure in the back of the pelvis on those little cervix start buttons, you're not going to get the full, engine's not going to start completely. You're going to get these little starts, comes back, little starts, come back. Contraction or two, maybe two contractions together, some space. You're excited, you're feeling this stuff, you're staying up all night, you're doing all your circuits, like getting your curb walking in, and it doesn't kick into full labor. So we call this prodromal or false labor. It's basically not getting everything firing for a hard pattern. So when we hear that you've been up for a night, maybe two, with these little irregular patterns that are not kicking in, that's the first thing that tells me your baby's head is not engaged back in the pelvis, okay? Maybe someone told you baby's head is engaged, but the nuance is that it is not deeply engaged and flexed. Okay, so flexion, how does that head get back there on that cervix? This baby's head here is very big in this diameter and smaller in this diameter, which this is not the perfect model here, but in order for this piece of the head to go back there on that cervix, it needs to be this part of the head, not this part. So babies that are sitting like so are not getting this going on. Hold on, let me change my baby position here. Ideal position, okay? Ideal position is not this. Ideal position is this head tucked, okay? Not straight down, head is tucked. That is proper pelvic floor and space for this head to get back there, okay? This baby cannot come down without a lot of force, a lot of openness. This is a very long labor that gets this baby's head down, or the baby can come down like this, and what do when their head's tucked like that? They mold into tiny little heads. We love that head flexed back there. It puts the pressure on the cervix, it molds properly, and things can progress. This big head can turn to a small cone head. So it's a nuance here of the flexion of the head which happens based on the tone and the availability of the space for this baby. So back to her labor, okay? So she's had this 24 hours of early stuff, and, we've been in communication, and I'm like, look, okay, you're going to get worn out. We've got to start working this. I call it working it, okay? So my mama last week, who I adore, and had this going on, she said, we don't need anyone yet. And it was getting to that second night. And I said, nope, we got to start working this. We need to get this labor tonight because you cannot sustain 3 nights of labor. We got to get this head engaged, or we got to just get it kicking in. So Mary, my guru that helps do a lot of these circuits, she went over, started working with this mom, started doing some things to help get this pelvis asymmetric, get this head engaged, get things relaxed, side lying release so we can open up these muscles here. We want to get everything loosey-goosey opened up and try to get that head down there and try to build these contractions. Why do we need strong contractions? We need to be able to push this head down there, right? Head has to go down at some point. So we need these strong contractions back to back. That's every 3 minutes, okay? First babies, you're not gonna have a baby usually unless your contractions get nice and strong every 3 minutes. So we start working these circuits, trying to get this baby moved, trying to get everything loose and everything. But here's the key. This is what's so frustrating with first pregnancies, particularly, like we said, if you are 30s and these patterns have been held, if you're healthy tissues are resilient, elastic, and not necessarily tight, but like elastic, okay? So babies don't fall through healthy tissues, right? If you're super obese and inflamed, this baby might skyrocket through your tissues because they're really soft and there's no tone. But I'm talking these cases of healthy women that have done everything right, have been super healthy. What's going on is these healthy tissues and these patterns are holding our sweet baby right up there. Good healthy tissue holding baby up. It is not going to open up without strong contractions to move this baby down. So we start working together, get these strong contractions. If you're using the hospital, you might go in a couple of times in early labor, and then you finally, or your provider finally says, let's do this. Let's break water. Let's get pitocin going. And honestly, if you have been up for more than 24 hours and your baby's doing this weird position on the pubic bone thing, do it. You cannot be up for 3 days and then us hand you a baby. So at some point you do need to move this on, and you might need interventions to help get things going. So for this last case, this mama, we supported her, got her into a good strong rhythm every 3 minutes, nice strong contractions. She was doing awesome relaxing and breathing. So she wasn't doing anything wrong. She released, she relaxed, she breathed. She did all the positions. We used the birth pool, which causes a lot of relaxation. We got her to do the down breathing, which is because we got to 8-9 centimeters pretty good, and that's what I've seen in each of these cases. Once it kicks into active, they dilate, they get 8-9 centimeters, but we don't go anywhere after that. We don't go anywhere. We're 8 to 9, maybe 10, but that head is still up here. And then our contractions start to get further and further apart because she gets tireder and tireder. And these contractions are spaced. And this uterus, okay, so baby is tucked into this uterus. So let's pretend this baby's in our uterus here. Baby is not able to get down there. And so the uterus starts to go up, 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 up. It's called an elongation of the lower segment of the uterus. If she lays flat on her back, the uterus is actually she's on her back. It's kind of flat at the bottom, big at the top. And so the uterus is saying, I cannot get this baby down there. And it's a sign of a dystocia of labor. Dystocia means it is not working, okay? And when we recognize these signs that mom is getting tired or temperature's going up, maybe baby's heart rate's going up because baby's also tired, the uterus is elongating and rising, and the contractions are spacing out because the uterus is saying, I'm tired, this is not working for me. We need to move on to, unfortunately, for those of us trying to have natural births, the next step towards our vaginal delivery. What do you think would help this situation? So we said, what is causing this baby to be up? We said nice, healthy tissues that are elastic. Okay, so how do we get through those elastic tissues? Frequent contractions to keep baby moving down, because if we have 6 minutes between contractions, baby's going to go right back up there. So we need what to have more frequent contractions? Now we might try herbs or breast pump or things like that at home, but in these cases, I do suggest that we don't wait 24 hours on this pattern. We instead do go ahead and get pitocin to really keep these contractions every 2 to 3, because that head is only going to get down there through that elastic healthy tissue if there is progressive pushing of the head down, okay? What was the other reason we said we were having a problem? We said that the pelvic bowl is not open enough for the head to get deep. We need all of these ligaments, all of these muscles, all of these ligaments holding this in. We need them to let go 110% and be as gooey and soft and uninhibited as possible. So despite this mama and each of these cases I'm thinking about, they did amazing at relaxing, you still hold tension because these contractions are really a force of nature, and there's a tension here. There's a tension here, we know, because your baby's been forward. And so you need an epidural. You do. This epidural is going to help you. This epidural, by being completely numb, keeps this 100% relaxed, that entire contraction and between. And that's what we need. At this point for vaginal delivery, we want our beautiful, healthy baby and healthy mom to proceed to these steps of complete pelvic relaxation through epidural and strong, close contractions through pitocin. And that's how we bypass this dystocia. We say, we want a vaginal delivery, open it up, get this baby going down, okay? Also, remember how tired she is. She's exhausted. She's been up for 2 nights, maybe 3. So she needs that relaxation and sleep, because we're going to give her a baby at the end of this, right? At the end of this 2-day labor, we want her to take care of her baby and to have some energy. We need her to have energy to push this baby out. And so we're proceeding to this plan B as something that is a beautiful part of the journey of this baby to come earthside as a healthy baby. We want baby to not have to go through a C-section. We don't want baby to be prolonged ruptured too long and risk sepsis. We want baby to not be so stressed out that it might aspirate any meconium, because often these first pregnancies, you're a little further along, there is meconium. Baby might have past meconium because of the stress of being really pushed into that pubic bone for a long time. So things get complicated. We want to move to these interventions, accept them. We want to accept the IV fluids, because at this point our body is tired. It's always dehydrated. Even when we have been pushing water and electrolytes and even food, fruit and stuff throughout labor, women always end up behind in their electrolytes. And in order for the uterus to work, we need to have electrolytes, hydration, we need calcium, magnesium. So we usually, Ringer's lactate, or LR we call it, is going to be bringing some of that, what's needed, into the body. So we accept and appreciate that we can do IV fluids in these cases. We accept and appreciate that we can do the pitocin and have monitoring of our baby. We want to know if our baby's getting too stressed out. We want to know if baby is saying that it's not resilient enough to proceed with further, because we're pushing labor at this point, right? So we accept the monitoring. We accept the use of pain medicine, and that's in order to achieve the relaxation and the rest that our mother needs during this process. These are all very safe. And, hopefully after she has rested and slept and baby's been moving down with these contractions, she has the energy to wake up and to push. Now, the other thing I want you to think about, going back to the diameter of this head here, okay, and those resilient, beautiful, tight, resilient first birth tissues, is that if this head is still coming down in this nice big diameter here, not super cone-headed or flexed, you're trying to push this head down through those tissues. Your baby's been in labor for a day or two, is super tired, might start to throw some D cells on the monitor, meaning baby's like, ugh, tired, not super resilient. We need to just have a baby, as we say. We need to get baby out, because this can be a long process. And I tell you, that last 1 inch of this baby getting earthside of coming out, that can take 2 hours. Okay. So we love those beautiful, healthy, tight tissues, but it can be very hard, and particularly if we're putting this nice big diameter through there, and your doctor or midwife might say, I think we should use a vacuum. Older school docs might know how to use forceps to actually manipulate the position of the head, but more commonly a vacuum, which is this nice little round suction that they just put on there. They use a little hand pump to create a little bit of suction, and while you push, they pull, and out comes this little head so much faster than if you just had to push on your own. It's pretty safe. I mean, I feel like it's very safe. I feel like it gets baby here with a lot less distress in these situations. And so at this point, if they say we need to have a baby, let's just get baby out, it really does reduce the stress of that last. That's the most stressful point for the baby, is that last inch or two coming out. And if they want to get your baby out, appreciate the fact that they can safely help. Baby probably has a nice big cone head with swelling, or caput we call it, and that vacuum's gonna leave the little vacuum shape, but it was already swollen because of this whole thing. And you might want to consider, if you were doing the vitamin K drops, you might now move on to thinking about the vitamin K shot, because of all this stuff that's been going on, pressure and the swelling in the head, and sometimes you get these little hematomas. I've seen that more in these cases that I'm describing, of these hematomas, and I do see that I feel like the vitamin K shot helps to prevent them from getting bigger. So I'm normally a supporter of the drops, but we are now in a different process here, and so we are more accepting of these things, okay? So baby might be a little bit floppy coming out, because this has been a long, exhausting process for baby. But babies get a full minute really to come around. Just need some gentle stimulation. If there's meconium, they're definitely going to try to go suction it out before they're stimulating. So remember, these babies are, whether this is a vaginal or a C-section, they are tired also. And they hopefully come back to you as soon as possible and get onto your chest. Now, the next thing to consider is that you probably might have a little extra bleeding. You know, why do you have more bleeding, or why might you hemorrhage? And that's because the uterus, which has been going at it, this muscle has been working for a long time, is tired. It has more concentration of lactic acid, which is throwing things off, maybe a little less calcium. Body's not producing that oxytocin as much on its own. You're reliant on what's been going in. Your temperature is probably a little bit higher. Often your body temperature is warm, 99, 100 during this long process. And so having some hemorrhage, needing some medicines, needing some support is part of this whole syndrome, okay? So we see that. It does not mean you're going to have a problem at your next birth, but it's part of what we see happening. And it's another reason we don't stay at home or birth centers once things get like this, because there's just all these extra little complications risks that come through these abnormal labors, okay? This is a dystocia labor. This is a protracted labor. We call it failure to progress. We did have to move on to using interventions, and hopefully we achieved this vaginal delivery, and we don't always, okay? So sometimes babies don't tolerate going through this. So I'll go through a few of those cases, but first, the last thing I think to think about is that you might have tears. So this whole time that this head has been up here, it has kind of obstructed some of this flow. Our bladder gets super full. We get super swollen down here because this fluid, there's like an obstruction of that flow and fluid. So by the time we're pushing a baby out, we are swollen down there. Our tissues are swollen. And those tissues, when they're swollen, they can tear more easily. Plus, if this head is coming out in this big diameter, it's not super flexed and cone-headed, it's a bigger diameter. Maybe they used a vacuum. Sometimes they'll recommend an episiotomy. And honestly, at this point, when if they're super swollen and you're starting to tear, and they can tell you're going to tear or start to tear, so you can ask them, be like, wait till they know you're tearing. If they cut a little one to the side, it will be prevent the deep 3rd and 4th degree, and it's a cleaner repair and recovery. So remember, we are no longer in the realm of normal birth where we do not need episiotomies. We are in the land that things are complicated and a little bit of a mess, and you can have a terrible mess of a tear. I mean, like up to the side, to the back, down the middle, when things are swollen. And so this is when we sometimes would consider an episiotomy. Often we're going a little bit to the side with those now because of the goal. The goal is to prevent the down tearing. And honestly, women's anatomy is different. Some have very short perineums. This last case that, she had beautiful, healthy tissues, which kept that baby up there. She had no tearing. Oh, no. She tore to the top. Didn't tear to the bottom. So this is where you have to hand over trust to your midwife or your doctor and hope that they are not doing anything without necessary, but trust that sometimes this is actually in your best interest to have a nice clean cut and repair. Plus, hopefully your epidural is working for this. So all very complicated, kind of a mess of a delivery, right? A mess of a lot of things, but we move on to these things and we accept these things to help us. Lastly, I want to mention these cases that end in cesarean. So of these 4 cases this year that I said that, these are healthy women, mid-30s, active, and baby was in a good position, but that head is just nuanced a little forward on that bone. 50 out of 50, these were cesareans, okay? So the reality of a cesarean in this case becomes very real. One of those cases, this baby just was not super resilient in its tolerance of labor. And so she just couldn't go through this we couldn't push it. So when she went to the hospital, they wanted to do the epidural pitocin, keep going, but the baby was not tolerating it. And that baby had, sometimes babies just have these, I call them wimpy cords. They're like, they don't have a lot of cushion on the cord. And, and you can't control that. And so that one case, she was able to get the epidural and try a little bit, but it became clear the baby was not going to tolerate pushing labor with the pitocin and things, and so she had to have a C-section. Unfortunately, the baby got here safe. And the second case that also had a C-section, there was, again, over 41 weeks, thick meconium. The position of the baby, baby started to have some intolerance. The baby was tired. Again, so now she had a day of early labor, a night of us laboring together, and that baby just started to lose some resiliency, and she was given the choice. You can either keep pushing it up to the point that your baby says no, and then it's an emergency cesarean, or you can choose to have a cesarean now, and we can do this at a nice slow pace, and it feels like it's your choice and you're making this agreement, and it's a little bit more empowered that way. So she was so exhausted at this point, and they could see the baby having these decelerations, and that most likely they weren't going to be able to push the contractions as much as they needed to get baby down. And she said, we talked through it, and said, okay, let's make an empowered choice to choose this path for our baby to be born safely, because, at the end of all this, baby has to get here safely. That is what the goal is. And so we choose our interventions for the safety of our mom and our babies. And we are grateful for these interventions. We are grateful for cesareans and hospitals that do these all the time safely. Moms are, I've worked in countries where moms died of cesareans, from an infection, and they didn't have it, or power was out. And so remember that these interventions are a part of us keeping you and baby safe. And when labor has not progressed normally, and we have been in these situations where baby is not flexed, not coming down, then we do have to accept these interventions. Lastly, I want to bring up one case that was similar, not as bad of a dystocia,